What's up, guys? This is Alex. I don't know if you saw the first video or not, but I'll just do a introduction here. Um, so, yeah, one of my pundits, my preferred political pundit. I wouldn't say preferred, just one of my favorites, Kyle Kalinske, brought this to my attention. It's called the political compass test, and the way it works is you take it. It's a series of questions, and it's pretty much gauging where you lean on the spectrum of political leanings. And what you see in front of you there is what the end result will look like. Uh, you have axes, that range from the left to the right, and authoritarian to libertarian. Now, what's really cool about this is not only do you figure out like kind of where you stand after this it's a pretty in-depth test. I think it takes about 2 hours if you guys are interested in doing it yourself. But it also compares you to where prominent figures stand as well. So if you want to see where Noam Chomsky or Hillary Clinton stands in comparison to you, it's a good opportunity. Um, so yeah, if you guys are interested in this, you can access it through politicalcompass.org. It's www.politicalcompass.org, and it's kind of funded through crowd funding, through public funding, that is. And it's just pretty much a research. I made a video going over what it's about. Um, I'll send that before I send this in case you guys want to just get an introduction. I'm just gonna dive in here and start taking this and answering some questions. All right, so here we go. All right, page 1 of 6. Just a few propositions to start with concerning, no less, how you see the country and the world. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. I strongly disagree. Um, that's where we're headed, and we're also seeing the negative sides of that, where we're trying to create an environment where these transnational corporations can prosper and flourish, but at what expense? These entities only have one interest or one goal, and that's to maximize their profits. That isn't to, look after our well-being. There's a debate to be had there if you're the free market type, and you know, you believe that a free and open market, free of any type of checks through government, will kind of regulate itself because through competition, the customer is able to select the most beneficial company that will serve their interests more so than a lesser company, and through that, all the self-serving interests that are so pronounced in what being a corporatist would understand, or corporatism pertains, will be checked by the people's interests, because at the end of the day they want to cater to people, and that's just a load of bullshit because you have monopolies. And I can go on, but I'm just gonna, and I'm sure we'll come across that again, so I'll just say I strongly disagree, or excuse me, I strongly agree. But yeah, let me I strongly disagree with that. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations. Yeah, I had it right at first. I'll strongly agree. All right, next question. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. I strongly disagree. I like to think of myself as a free thinker. Um, I do have a nationalist vein in me. I am proud of being an American. I'm proud of you know, where I'm from, Florida, South Florida in particular, but that doesn't make it just inherently right in what our leaders decide what to do, and especially what not to do, which seems to be a concern, a growing concern of late. It's kind of an acts of omission that are um, really causing just tension throughout. It's the lack of acknowledging what our social issues are, and also financial, which I'm sure we'll get into as we continue. All right. Um, no one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Kind of just answered that. I agree and disagree with that. Like I said, I'm proud of it. I don't think it's foolish, um, but I think exceptionalism is a prelude to supremacy, and you combine that with ethnocentrism, and you have the quote unquote alt right fuckheads today that think that they're more entitled to this country more so than minorities, to the point where they want to create their own state free of diversity, which is a, a hilarious notion. But there's that side of it. And however, I think there is a bit of pride to, that's nothing wrong with that, to be associated where you're born with, because it makes you individual. It makes you unique from someone that's not born there, and where that's not necessarily better or worse, but it's still something to uh, recognize that makes you different. I think that's something to be proud of. I don't know. So I'm going to go with disagree, not strongly disagree, not agree. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Yeah. Um, Compared with other races is a problem. If we're going to do comparative, we could argue that melanin and skin makes us more, prone to not be, susceptible to skin cancer, but other races share that as well. But this is pretty much bullshit. There's only one race, and that's the human race. It's clearly an outliner to fracture, the certain people that are like I described before that think they're better than others, and I disagree with that. Strongly disagree. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Um, it's kind of an absolutist line of thinking. I can't say I agree with that. I would go with the enemy of my enemy is a potential ally. Friend is strong. Um, yeah, I think that's just where I'm gonna leave it at that. Go with disagree. Next one: military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Wow, that's so loaded. I don't know whether everyone that's listening to this is aware of this or not, but we're currently engaged in, I believe, what is 7 wars in, wars in 7 different countries: Somalia, Afghanistan, I think Yemen, a slew of others. Um, and we get into those just through this green lighting that George W. Bush started, which is the war on terrorism, which is convenient for the military to pursue this imagined, not imagined, but just elusive target that could really take it anywhere. Um, it's kind of a slippery slope, and yeah, it's completely not justified to just shit on international law to be considered, what we consider the good guys in an unwinnable battle. No, international law should be held. That's what creates peace, and to just outright ignore that, to think that you are somehow not beholden to that. What type of environment is that going to create? First us, then them, then everyone can do it. It's not it's not cool, man. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go with disagree. Strongly disagree. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. No, those laws need to be revisited. Um, I could possibly paint some type of dystopian uh, vision that is going down, genocide, things like that. Um, but far and wide, I'm just going to go with strongly disagree. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. You know, um, that's credible. Um, you have your political commentators now, Alex Jones, even some aspects of the Young Turks. Highly informative and love that program, the latter. However, you know, there's that entertainment, entertaining aspect to it that draws the masses, and it's kind of necessary, in my opinion. Um, we've seen the failing of what a quote unquote unbiased news source such as CNN, or I can go down the list, especially CNN, that does objective reporting, and what that failure is. Be good for me just to list all this up front so we can kind of hasten it as these questions progress and keep coming up, I'm sure, throughout this test. Um, is the problem with that style of reporting is that a let me just list this out. Is nothing's ever really unbiased. There's always a bias because we're human, and we have, even in our most objective line of thought, we think of certain questions. And that in this case, I'm just gonna leave that at A. B. The problem with CNN, or the likes of CNN, is that they'll put two opponents on film, on TV, and give them equal platforms. One being, let's first say for example, a climate change denier, and the other one Bill Nye. This is a true story, by the way, and they'll have them duke it out, asking questions that are just right down the middle, without weighing in, because they're unbiased and they're objective. Now, the harm with that is that it's giving what is factually incorrect, which is the side that believes that climate change is a hoax, an equal platform with something that 90, I believe 97+% of scientists are all agreeing on, that uh, there is not only documented evidence of the impact of what man in the excess of carbon dioxide and emissions that are impacting climate change, but just that it does exist, and it's a harm because it's arming the deniers. uh, it's giving an audience to those deniers to say, to muddy the issue. Where a biased news reporting, it shouldn't be so much as biased as let's pick a side. It should be objective, truly objective, biased in objectivity, I would say. That way they can stick to the fucking facts, and they can weigh in on, wait, that's complete horseshit. Here's why. Or, yeah, that's right and you're wrong. Please, would you care to rephrase that answer, the question, or whatever? but they don't do that. They'll allow you know someone to come on and just blazingly lie, and then someone like Bill Nye to do all the heavy lifting. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. Yeah. So it's neutrality really versus objectivity. You know, they're so worried about being attacked by. Um, I'll save that for a later discussion as we move forward. But yeah, that's to get to the point here. When they say there is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment, entertainment at its core is about appealing to the masses. And what's wrong with appealing to the masses while providing information? You know, I think that's a problem that's a trap that we've fallen down into. That is, we've just, our whole education infrastructure is based on just dumping loads of information on you and then expecting you just to dump it back onto a test and then immediately forget it as you move forward. What's the problem with appealing to you so you can associate all that data with, uh, you know, fun and entertainment so that way you can have context, further context. It'll help with retention and it will help with across the board. So I'm just gonna say I disagree and not strongly disagree because there is a frightening aspect to it because information isn't outright correct, is it? Um, and you have people like Alex Jones saying that there's space aliens and lizard people walking among us, and then he'll say something right like Hillary's corrupt, and it's really just it's scary because as he creates an audience, what is it? What is that setting a pretense towards? What is he allowing to happen next? So I don't like it. Extremely disagree, or excuse me, I don't extremely agree. Um, I'm just gonna say I disagree. Let's move forward here. Now the economy. Um, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I'm just gonna make a quick, you know, plug. I'm not, promoting this software. However, I am using it. It's called Screencast Capture Lite. It's kind of new to me. If you guys have another one that you really do like to use, it's just an application that allows me to screencast. That is to both record my voice as well as record how I interact with my screen in order to share it with you guys. I did have little problem issues with it at first. I think I've got them figured out. So here's to hoping that it doesn't just drop off on me. But yeah, just wanted to say that. And, now we're on page 2 here. The economy. We're talking attitudes here, not the FTSE index. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. I would agree. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think it's pretty straightforward. You know, yeah. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Man, these are good questions and they're loaded. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Let me answer that with a resounding yes. Strongly agree. Um, right now, well, inflation. Hmm. Unemployment is not solving unemployment is not the end all solution to every economic woe that an America would face. You know, there also is wages, and right now I believe I believe unemployment is down to like 4.5%, which is good. When Obama inherited the shit show that uh, George W. Bush left for him, it was about 8%, maybe a little above that. And that at that point, you're flirting with depression numbers as far as the percentage goes. Um, but getting it down to 4.5% isn't, you know, it's not bad. It's really good. However, look at the state of this country. Um, on the other hand of that, the other side, you know, uh, another fun fact is that 50% of Americans are earning $30,000 or less. Now that's sad. Those are families. You know what I mean? Like, how can you provide for yourself and your family if you're making a household income of $60,000? I live in South Florida. You guys do too, largely. That is the people I'm sending this to, not to I don't know whoever else would listen to this. And the cost of living here is pretty high in comparison with the rest of America. It's not the highest, but in some places of South Florida, it can compete with that. And $60,000 is just it's slave waging. It's slave wages. It's putting you in a situation where you have to work two, maybe three jobs just to keep the lights on. Like I said, you can't support family and college for your kids on that. It's really setting it's priming the country for another collapse, in my opinion. So to say controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment, I would say it is. I would say it is. Now, inflation isn't just wages. You know, it's but all of those are dependent on inflation. Which is why I bring it up. Other factors, products you buy, the wages you make, where you live, rent, all of that is affected by inflation, and just solving employment problems doesn't really um, solve the entire answer, or just problem. So I digress. I'm gonna say strongly agree. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Moving on. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. 100%. Strongly agree. Corporations, like I said before, they have only one goal in mind. Their modus operandi is to make profits. And that's just what it's about. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but that needs to be understood, and part of that understanding is to know that they need regulations. That's where a government should come into place. Um, it's about protecting the people, uh, and that's exactly what we're not seeing right now. And I'd love to get into that some more. I'm sure there'll be more opportunities here. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, is a fundamental good idea. Wow, I think I might be wrong here. I'm not some political guru, but I want to say that's a quote, and it's for socialism, or is it? Let me think on that. It might be fascism, actually. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. I'll look into that and I'll get back to you guys, or you can possibly send me one message to correct me there. But let's just analyze that. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Um, I don't know. I can't say I agree with that. You know, um, I have my reasons, and here they are. Let me listen to you. Um, to create a system in which we're just grading each other off of needs, abilities, is kind of, super big government to me, and that's not the issue. I mean, that's not where we want to head. Um, we do need a not a free market, but a fair market, one in which you can compete. You have a shot to compete without getting squashed by the bigger fish. That is to say, the corporate, you know, entity, the transnational corporate entity that's got lobbyists in your local government, not local government, but your federal government, that are setting the they're setting the stage for your failure. You know, I, along that line of thinking goes so many other ideas, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. Um, that's very limiting to me. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Nah, nah, I'm going to disagree with that strongly. Okay, it's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Strongly agree. Strongly agree. Part of those, sins of omission that our government's doing right now, for lack of a better word, about I just don't say sin. I just say like they dropped the ball. How about the sports analogy? Is that they're not really interested in the state of our infrastructure as much as they're interested in padding the wallets of their donors. The military industrial complex. It's so apparent right now. We just bombed Syria, and the bloodthirsty Americans are applauding and they're getting erections, and the mainstream media is falling in line. No one's offering an opposing view to that as to why the hell we're doing it. You know, which there is a conversation to be had there. Now this is a hard subject to tackle because there's never like a really clear, drawn out, definitive right answer. On one side you have Syria, which I can get into, is not really it's not the liberal bastion that we enjoy here in certain parts of America. That is, um, and they're actually, yeah, they're how can I say uh, their alliance with Russia is troubling, um, and this will come up further as we move on, and I don't want to get into it too much at this point and make this a 4 hour discussion. However, it's said that Russia is not wanting Syria to fall or to be toppled over, Assad to be wiped out. So, Europe, who's interested in their oil, can make a pipeline when Russia is already providing that oil. Um, so that explains why they're involved there. But Assad's not a nice guy, as Trump would put. And you know, do we go in there and just topple him because we don't like him? I would say no, right? I mean, I'm more of a nation building first, non-interventionist line of thinking. There's a whole lot of there's a slew of reasons outside of what I'm getting at. But on the other side, here's the point of contention that's not really brought up. is that Syria is also in a war with ISIS right now, and they're actually fighting ISIS. So which furthers the discussion, or the point of why the hell get involved in that when on one side you have Syria and the other side you have ISIS. By bombing Syria, are you strengthening ISIS? Like why when two of your enemies are duking it out, isn't the best thing to do just to stand back and just watch them instead of throw your hat in the ring and get involved? But the hypocrisy is just dripping. It's so loaded, and we're already at 31 minutes here, so I'm just gonna keep this show rolling here, keep it moving. But I'm sure this will come up further. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. There's a discussion to be had there. Who's actually accumulating that land, and with that land comes power. Um, I'm gonna just disagree. Man, I love these questions. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. Now that's wow. That's something there. That's something. That's a very good point. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. I mean, that's Wall Street, and it's 100%. And you know, uh, how many of you know that Goldman Sachs, they, oh man, I'm gonna get into that later. I'm sure it'll come up again, but yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that and just say it is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to society, to their society. I'm gonna say I strongly agree. And that some of our brightest thinkers are going into that field. Brightest meaning like people. If your motive is to make the most amount of make the most amount of dollars you can, why not find that field? And that's what that is. Those are brains that can go to STEM. Instead, they're going to crony corporatism and Wall Street pretty much. And I have a story for Goldman Sachs that I'm sure you guys already know of, but I'm just going to say it later on though, because I feel like I'm already drawing this out a little too long here. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to say I agree. I strongly agree. Even sometimes your nation has interests. Um, Too much is a problem because since everything is just so interconnected, if you're gonna just tariff the fuck out of people, people, other countries, um, you could really, harm their delicate, uh, um, I don't want to say economy, but just situation. You know, so you just can't tax everybody. Blanketly, blanketed taxes just to uh, for your own gain because that's not how the world works, man. There needs to be quid pro quo. However, the phrasing of it is it sometimes necessary, and the answer is yes. You know, um, right now we need a I don't want to say nationalist, but just a definite um, non-interventionist, just a nation-building point of view outlook from politicians, because there's a lot of problems that we are facing and face, and our society is just, you know, it feels like it's just crumbling in some ways, socially and physically in the infrastructure. But protectionism is an echo of that, and yeah, I think it is necessary sometimes in trade. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. Now that's an interesting point. Do you guys know what is the phrase? It's called a oof. Man, I just had a really riveting discussion about it. But it's more or less like a collection of workers that treat a company like um, a democracy, as opposed to you know uh, what we're used to here, which at some points is like a tyranny, and others like an oligarchy. Um, and to say only the only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders is a loaded question. Because why does a company need shareholders if that's the point? You know, at that point, the shareholders are the entire body of the company. I think it's a group. Damn it. I'm sorry, guys. It's like a group something. I'll get back to you on that one. But here's the premise. Like here's a question. Um, if your shareholders, you know, can make a profit by, the company deciding to move uh, their, workforce over to China in order to make a larger profit, they're gonna do so. But if everyone's a shareholder, right? If everybody in the company equally, or if not equally, but majorly, has a stake in that company and has a decision in its decision making, has a vote in its decision making, and at that point, if the question is posed to them, hey, would you? This company can profit if you all lose your jobs. They're gonna say the fuck no, right? Okay, that's one instance. So how about if the company can make a profit at the expense of the environment. It's just dumping emissions into the air. The air quality goes down, air pollution up. But we live in the Hamptons. We live in Miami. Not my problem. It's over in or somewhere with shitty air quality. I don't know. Like just name the place. We're not there. We're here. Shareholders will say yes because it doesn't directly impact them. And this is a theme that I'll carry on, and I'll get to uh, my uh, understandings, not just understandings, but just what it means to be conservative is what I'm getting at. Anyways, if you ask that same question, the one before about the air quality, uh, the the impact to air quality for the sole purpose of profiting more to a working body of the company, of the group. Is it group collect? I forget. It'll come to me here. But the group company. Um, if you ask them if they want to sacrifice air quality for more bucks. But oh yeah, we also live here. Our kids play here. We have families and generations to grow up here. I feel like they're more inclined to say the fuck no. you know? So, yeah, this is a loaded question. And the only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I'm going to say I strongly disagree. Not to say that, like I said, I want a fair market, not a free market. Free market means we can move pretty much assets over to other countries that have no problem exploiting their people, uh, shitty hours and work conditions, in order to to make the promise for those other companies that want to work there, settle down there to profit more. You know, um, that's just wrong. Uh, a fair market is to allow capitalism to fucking be capitalism. And we don't see that today. What we see is something else. It's a byproduct of capitalism. It's capitalism fused with the social uh, impacts it can do through just the influencing and corruptive power of money on our politicians. Um, but yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that, and I'm sure we'll discuss this as we move forward. The rich are too highly taxed. Fuck no, it's ridiculous. If you look at the most prosperous times of our country, going back into like you know FDR coming out of a depression, even I believe in the 50s, maybe 40s, 50s. I want to correct me on this, but the tax rate for the rich was like 90 fucking percent, and they were doing just fine. But yeah, it's totally not too much right now. Oh, just went back there. Sorry, let me go forward. I'm gonna hit pause here as I fill this out again, guys. Sorry, hold on. Or not. Okay, so I'm just hit back, so I'm gonna fill out these answers again just to keep this party going. Hold, please. People are ultimately divided more by class than nationality. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording. Sorry, and I'll pick it up, guys. This is just, I guess, video one.